welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about animation, TV, movies, comics, and more. We're reviewing the new Amazon Prime animated series, Batman Caped Crusader. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
And I'm Clifton.
All right, we're trying something new with this review. We typically review only the first few episodes, but for Batman Caped Crusader, we're actually going to review the entire first season. So, that's right, the whole season. So here's how it's going to work. This is going to be part one. We're going to be looking at episodes 1, 2, and 3. Bear in mind that we will be spoiling everything in these episodes, so if you haven't watched them, go and check them out, and then come back. We'll wait. And if you don't care about that sort of thing, great. We'll jump right in.
Batman Caped Crusader is produced by Bruce Timm, J.J. Abrams, Matt Reeves, Ed Brubaker, and Sam Register. Hamish Linklater voices the title character of Batman, Bruce Wayne. The series is co-executive produced by James Tucker, Jace Ricci, John Agbahay, and produced by Warner Brothers Animation. The series currently airs on Amazon Prime.
So quick note, we did review the trailer for Batman Caped Crusader a few weeks back, so be sure to check it out to compare our initial snap reactions with the reviews of the series.
All right, perfect. Let's get started. All right. Episode 1, In Treacherous Waters, story by Jace Ricci, Bruce Timm, teleplay by Jace Ricci, directed by Christina Sada.
All right.
All right. So we open with a mobster tied up and begging for mercy. It seems that someone in their outfit has been sharing secrets with the rival mob run by Rupert Thorne. Enter a dark and mysterious figure, their face hidden in the shadows, but features such as a monocle and a top hat and umbrella switchblade clearly hint that this is the Penguin.
Right.
Doors shut, and Penguin makes an example of this guy. We cut to a mob shipment. These are Thorne's guys. They know that they're going to be hit tonight by a rival gang, so they're moving stockpiles out. They remark about rumors of a Batman operating in Gotham. The lights go out, smoke fills the room, and Batman takes them all out. Very Batman Begins-ish. One goon breaks away, makes it outside. Batman follows him to take him out, and then he hears a sound of an incoming missile, and then the warehouse is blown to bits, and we roll the open.
Right.
So, what do we think so far?
It's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in this cold open pre-credit scene.
Yes.
I was reminded of a little bit of Batman '89 with the hoods talking about the Bat.
Right.
Yeah.
I did like that. It was a nice throwback to a little fun take we've seen before. Crooks being all superstitious in the streets.
Right.
There's like no better introduction for Batman than to have him like move around like a horror movie monster,
Right.
taking things out like left and right.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of slasher film. Yeah.
It works. I mean, it's hardly the first time we've seen it. It works.
Right.
It works really well.
Yeah. No, I will say I do like that. The fact that cold scene before the credits opens with a building exploding is a little unusual for a Batman. It does tell you the stakes are higher than we've seen, because they just leveled an entire building in an explosion right behind Batman.
Yeah,
so that is a high impact intro scene.
I mean, they do set it up, in expositionally with it while these guys are, knowing they're going to get hit. The idea of like, there's gang war stuff, or there's going to be a gang war stuff, or there's, rival mobsters, or in then Gotham rival supervillain mobsters.
Right.
Getting ready to possibly, or have been maneuvering around each other. And oh, by the way, there's a Batman or a Bat thing that we have to worry about on top of everything else.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, I like that. I thought it was interesting that they were doing it that way, where they're just giving you the establishing stuff and then then cutting into the theme.
Someone gets shot.
Yeah,
that's another tell. That's another tell. Like, oh, okay, this is skewing a bit older.
A little
bit.
Yeah. What'd you guys think of the open? Now's about as good a time as any to talk about it here. So,
but no, the intro I like. It's very moody. Very like trying to be 1940s, black and white even. So it's taking the title cards, kind of the aesthetic of the title cards from Batman the Animated Series, the original, but taking it even a little further to making it black and white into like a moving style of a black and white title card.
Yeah.
And the music. I didn't catch who did the music. Did you happen to catch that, Zach?
It's somebody they've worked with before.
Okay.
Let me look it up really quick.
Because I was going to comment about that. I do like the intro. It's slower paced than a lot of like the Danny Elfman stuff. That we've heard before, but I really like it. It's not too far removed from that, but it's different and a little mellow, a little more subdued, a little more atmospheric, I think.
It's again talking about the fact that we end on an explosion, that first couple scenes, to go right into the kind of moody, kind of slow, kind of
right.
I don't know if it's I don't know if that's the best way to do it. That was my only thing about it. I was like, okay, so
right, a little jarring for you.
Yeah, just because we established that this is, obviously it's an action show, it's Batman, so there's going to be a fair amount of action going on. So, but then to I'm that spooky phantom, that's what's right. Kind of a thing. Again, it wasn't bad. It just was. I mean, the music itself was fine. I just thought juxtaposed against what we just saw.
Right. The high impact open we got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
So, Frederick Weidman is the composer for the series.
Okay.
So I presume he's the one that actually did the open song. And they've worked with him a few times in the past. He's done like Flashpoint Paradox. He did Son of Batman, Throne of Atlantis, Batman vs. Robin, Gods and Monsters, Gotham by Gaslight, bunch of these, bunch of the animated movies. But he also did Green Lantern, the animated series, and Beware the Batman too.
Okay.
And Clifton, he does Dragon Prince.
Oh, okay. Dragon Prince is good. I like that.
Good stuff. Yeah. No. I really like the music for that opening. Like, I love it. Even I think possibly it would have been cool to get like an intro made as opposed to just like shots of the show.
Right.
But they definitely like zhuzh it up, and like you said, with the black and white, and they
the grain look.
They give it grainy look and soften it a bit and everything, and it's super, super moody. I like it. I do like it a lot. But it does make me wonder. I think back to Superman the Animated Series, where Bruce Timm had said that they had wanted to do an actual like opening for it, and they ran out of time. And so what you got is basically only like 2 original shots in the whole thing, and the rest of it was clips of the show. So it did make me wonder if something similar happened, or if
time ran out.
Yeah. Or if this is a conscious like, no, this is what we want to do.
Like, how many shots have they shipped us back from overseas? What can we put in this?
Let's sift through it. Right. Let's sift through it and cut together. Yeah.
So, all right. So, we open up on an establishing shot of Wayne Manor. And then we go into the Batcave. Batman remarks to Alfred that there were 3 explosions in the last 2 weeks. The targets were all Thorne businesses. The previous 2 were ruled accidental. And it seems that there's a new crime boss that they don't know about operating in secret in Gotham. Batman thinks starting his investigation with the police department. Someone inside must be helping. After all, it's Gotham and corruption is everywhere, as he says to Pennyworth, as he calls him, not Alfred. We cut to a courtroom the next morning. Barbara Gordon is a defense attorney, wrapping up her closing remarks for her defendant. The kid was set up to take the fall. The court recesses for jury deliberation. She has an interaction with the opposing counsel on the case, a shrewd and smarmy district attorney named Harvey Dent. Dent is running for mayor on the slogan, Harvey Dent, tough on crime. He is confident he has won the case, but offers Barbara a chance for a coin flip to decide what sentence he will recommend for her client. It's a 2-headed coin.
Oh.
So, what do you guys think of Harvey in this?
He's definitely, like you said, smarmy is the best word to describe him.
Yeah.
Right.
I thought that it was interesting that was the way they were going. Not quite so the squeaky clean or the Apollo to the Dark Knight that he's been portrayed as before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting take. It's kind of, in some of the choices, I think it's kind of hard to like him. Whether, before we know what he's eventually going to be.
Sure.
Right.
And I don't know what the intent is there. Because again, if he's already, they're already showing us he's kind of a jerk, and on top of that, he's willing to play with people's lives over a flip of a coin before he gets acid thrown in his face. It's one of those. Okay, well, I mean, I'm hoping there's a reason for it, but usually the starting point for Harvey Dent is, we like him, and then we feel bad for him, and then we see that obviously there's a lot more that was already going on before the acid uncovered all the scars.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the experience, like you just mentioned, multiple characters, like Barbara, defense attorney, I guess is what she is. And then Harvey, and like the other characters we've been introduced to is like, they're all characters we know, obviously.
Yeah.
And they're all characters that we've seen all the people involved, well, not all the people involved, many of the people involved in this show work on before and give us iterations of before. So it was like, I did find a little bit jarring each time of being like, oh, it's Barbara. What is she here?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's Harvey. What is he here? Like, I do find that. And a lot of it just has to do with our familiarity with Bruce Timm, with James Tucker, with the other things they've created, and that they've made the conscious decision to divert from our expectations about what they've done before.
Yeah.
I think those are all conscious decisions on their part, but it does have that effect of me going like, what's their deal this time?
Yeah.
Like every time we're introduced to somebody, we know who they are.
No, it's an excellent point. I mean, so it was something we pointed out when we reviewed the trailer, but we didn't bring up in this one. Yeah, I mean, this is both of those guys, in the case of Bruce Timm and James Tucker, both of their second shows as basically like head showrunner of Batman, right? Bruce Timm did Batman the Animated Series, James Tucker, Batman the Brave and the Bold. So this is, but they've also worked on the character like countless times in movies and stuff like that too. So yeah, there is, it feels like a big motivation of like, let's not repeat ourselves.
Right.
So, this is, these whole episodes are spoilers, but I mean, like this is a pattern of a slight reinvention of a character or reinterpretation of things, while also keeping the core truth intact in a lot of ways. I will say for Harvey that this is a flip, pun intended. Like Frank was saying, typically we see, think of Dark Knight, Gotham's White Knight, right? I believe in Harvey Dent, all that stuff. Harvey is typically revealed to be like super, super virtuous at first.
Right.
And it is a deliberate, just change of pace and flip of things that like, oh, he starts off kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're right, like not very likable at first.
No.
Like that's the thing that's super effective, I will say. For a beloved character, I don't like him.
No.
For a beloved character, I have a lot of attachment to.
He was voiced by Dietrich Bader.
Yeah. The voice works good. I like that.
Yeah.
The voice works great.
Exactly.
He sells the smarm.
What do you think of Barbara?
I liked it. I liked her too. I like that. I don't know. I mean, again, it's interesting that she's in the courtroom. I thought that was an interesting thing. I mean, it's not a terrible direction.
No.
But I was going back to the whole thing about the Batcave and Pennyworth.
Right.
Not really a fan of that. It hasn't really grown on me yet. I still have trouble with that one. It's I mean, I understand that they're going for a little more detached Batman. From what, at least from the first couple episodes, it felt very much like he's detached from everybody.
Right. Yeah.
But we'll talk more about that as we talk about the other episodes. But that was one that was like, oh, even that I was like, oh, that's kind of cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To the guy that makes sure you eat and sleep.
Yeah. I had notes to that effect about a later episode that we'll get into a little bit more. But like cold is definitely, he's colder than we're used to. Is definitely how I would describe the Bruce Pennyworth relationship at this point in the show. Barbara, for me, just going back to that one for a sec, it's a little jarring for me to see that she's a fully adult woman. Like she's much more contemporary to Bruce than I'm used to seeing. And I didn't know, because I'm always used to seeing her much more contemporary to Dick, much more contemporary to Robin, Nightwing, in all the tellings I'm used to. And so I can't remember exactly how it was in the comics when she first would have appeared, mid 60s, I guess, alongside the show when the show was on. And I did happen to catch an episode of 66 Batman just over the weekend on MeTV on Saturday nights after Svengoolie. Right. And it was one where Bruce and Dick had gone out to, I guess, like the Hamptons of Gotham because they're like on a beach trip.
Right.
And Dick's there with like his teenage friends, and they had brought Barbara Gordon as a chaperone for Dick. Oh. And I was like, oh, so I guess on that show she was an adult too. I never quite placed, even though she did like work, like she did have a job on that show.
Right.
So I was like, at that point, I guess she was considered an adult and Dick was not. So I was like, maybe that's where they're drawing from a bit from that time.
Is she the librarian of that one? Is she a librarian?
I think she's the librarian in that one, yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure that's what she's
Batman.
I'm pretty sure that's what she starts out in the comics, but there's also the idea that she's in the comics. I think there's a throwaway line, if I'm remembering that I think it's what Carmine Infantino, I can't remember who wrote it. But there's a line about being a spinster.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, and it was one of those things where I'm like, or at least people viewed her that way.
Right.
Which again, Dick would have made her older than Dick at that point, but
yeah. So that was the thing where I'm like, most of the tellings, I'm used to her being much more contemporaneous to Dick, much more closer to his age. Mm-hmm. So that was again like an adjustment, and even in their previous shows, like she was a college student with Dick in Batman the Animated Series, if I remember right.
Yeah, I think I think we all have that expectation always that she's closer in age to Dick Grayson,
right,
than Bruce Wayne. As far as the which I don't mind this interpretation at all. I like it quite a bit actually. Mm-hmm. The lawyer thing is a completely new thing. She's typically depicted in the comics as like a librarian. Sometimes she works for the police department. We see her as Oracle, is master hacker, all of those things and everything. But lawyer, as far like there was one instance, I think in the 70s, she was running for public office, right?
Yeah, she was going to be a congresswoman. Yeah.
But as far as lawyer, I can't think of a single depiction of lawyer in any in-canon Batman thing. Mm-hmm. Can't speak for Elseworlds, that I'm not sure about, but I think that this is as far as I know, a first. Definitely an animation. Definitely for that. Yeah, and we'll get into Bruce and Alfred down the line. But gotcha. All right, so that night, Batman sneaks into police headquarters. From police reports, Batman gets the name of Fire Inspector Wilfred Lee, who signed off on the explosions being accidental. Batman finds Lee stumbling out of a bar, interrogates him with the threat of a train. Who paid him to falsify the reports, and Lee gives up the Penguin's name. We cut to the Iceberg Lounge, reimagined as a luxury yacht. Inside is a fundraiser supporting your local police. Mm-hmm. Penguin, we see, is a woman in this version, performing a very catchy tune. She appears to be chummy with Dent and Detective Flass, and Detective Bullock is a joke. Here is where we meet Commissioner James Gordon. He's standing with his daughter, Barbara. She's bored, but she needs to attend the fundraiser. Dent is also there. He thinks he and Jim will do great things as soon as he's made mayor after the election, and they remark on the Batman rumors. Barbara clearly thinks that they are superstitious hokum.
Right.
Not a believer whatsoever in Batman. Outside, Alfred pilots a speedboat to drop off Bruce at the Iceberg Lounge. Bruce has suspected the Iceberg Lounge is a front for much illegal activity, hiding in plain sight as a cabaret joint, but wasn't aware the Penguin was making advances to become a player in Gotham's underworld. On the boat, we meet quickly Penguin's two sons, the small-statured mama's boy Aaron, who's the blonde one, and the sleazy Ronnie, who hits on Barbara and then lashes out when she rejects him.
Right.
In the banquet hall, Thorne is also on the boat to support local police. He interacts in a kind of a charade interaction with the Penguin. She heard that he had an office in the latest building that was blown up, and she feigns being relieved that he wasn't there. Thorne remarks that, he had found out about the attack by a little bird he told him, and that's how he made it out. He's insinuating that Aaron is a rat.
Right.
And this scene I dug because they don't know, but they know. Right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nearby, Bruce is doing the Playboy shtick. He's bragging about women and spilling drinks, so he's a booze hound.
Mm-hmm.
He gets away to snoop. He makes his way into a storage hangar with an interior water access port, like in The Abyss, if you've seen it.
Right.
He quickly finds drugs, but his search is interrupted when he hears people approaching. So Bruce jumps into the water so not to be seen. And then he reappears climbing up the side of the boat to the party next to Barbara getting some air. And he's joking, it's not a real yacht party until someone falls overboard.
Right.
Party animal, this Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
Right. Back in the hangar, Penguin and her muscle bring in the two kids, Ronnie and Aaron. Ronnie sells out Aaron. Penguin thinks it's him because he's the small one, little bird. Aaron gets a bag over his head, tossed into a trunk, and then tossed into the water for betraying her. She has a shred of sadness because Aaron was her favorite. Now she remarks to Ronnie that he's her favorite in a veiled threat.
Yeah.
So, okay, a couple of things I want to pack over here. Penguin's vicious.
Yeah.
Very. Yeah.
What do we think of this version?
I like this version. We were expecting this version. We did find out it was going to be Oswalda Cobblepot. So that did kind of take the surprise out of their first shot where they kept Penguin in silhouette. I was like, okay, that would have been a little more effective in the cold open if you hadn't told us all about it already. But other than that, yeah, I like performance. Minnie Driver.
Yeah.
I like singing the standard. She's like the lounge act in her own lounge. I kind of like. She's kind of has to be the center of attention for everything at that place, which is fun. But yeah, she's definitely cold. She's cold-hearted.
Yeah, I looked at when I saw the image to begin with of Oswalda, my mind immediately went to Ethel Merman.
Okay.
As the basis for it, and I didn't think about it at the time, but I guess somewhere in the back of my memory and in my mind is she's in a couple episodes of Batman 66, the Adam West show, as Lola Lasagna, a childhood friend, and the reason why I thought this, she's a childhood friend of the Penguins. Yeah, the sport of Penguins is the episode that she first appears in. But I thought that's what they were going for, like for a visual. But I saw a thing with Bruce Timm saying that they decided what set them on that path was Marlene Dietrich in the tuxedo.
Okay.
And that's where they chose to go with a female Penguin instead of doing the typical Oswald Cobblepot that we've known.
Yeah,
I like this version. I think it works. I do like the whole thing of the lounge and being the like Clifton was saying, being the center of attention and performing, and the kind of flirtatious stuff that she does with Flass and some of the other people in the room I thought was fun.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily like the whole idea of it was so simple to play her. I thought that was kind of
right.
That was the only thing that bugged me about it. But then the moment of just being like, well, you're done, and throwing him in the trunk. That was surprising. Again, as we're skewing a little older on this one. But yeah, I think the character has a lot of potential. I think that you could do a lot with that with her as she is.
Yeah.
And for a moment, I thought we might be getting, this is the origin of the Penguin that we actually know, but I don't think we're doing that.
Well, so a couple of things for me. So I was watching this, rewatching this with my wife, and when the reveal came that Penguin was a woman, she was like, "Oh, but they kept the design the exact same." She basically looks at she's just taller. Right. She's taller and more physically imposing, I think. I like this version a lot. I think the fact that she's a woman makes the brutality a little bit more shocking.
Right.
I think it has that effect. I really like the fact she has kids.
Yeah.
I really, really, really like this addition to it. It gives me like a Ma Parker feel from Batman 66.
Sure.
Which weirdly is coming up a lot in this episode already.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really, really dig that. I think that, we've seen Oswald in the comics have kids, and that's been kind of like a new revelation. But what I also dig about it is that like they're in the business with her.
Right.
It's got like a Godfather feel.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I dig that. I really dig that, actually. What about Bruce? How do we like I think this goes pretty hard into the Playboy shtick.
What I liked about that scene with him was he tries it on Barbara, the whole thing about, well, it's not a party, a yacht party until someone falls overboard.
Right.
And she doesn't bite. And then he immediately goes to people that, he does the exact same thing, which I thought was interesting because I thought, well, that's very telling that this is something he obviously has come up with ahead of time.
Yeah.
He's rehearsed this idea of like, well, what do I do in this situation? Right. How do I act like, what I'm supposed to be? Which I thought was again, I mean, we haven't, based on what we know about Batman, Batman went through all sorts of training. So at some point, he had to learn how to be this fop, this playboy. So there's somewhere where he picked all that stuff up and learned how to do that. So that was basically it's like, oh, my line didn't kill on this part, so I should try it again, and it does. Right. So
I kind of took it as like he could have come up with another line that was clever, but instead he was like, I'll just use the same one again because that'll also play into the like, oh, I'm just kind of dumb and drunk,
kind of vapid, yeah. Yeah.
I think the other instance where I can think of where we get like a Playboy Bruce Wayne done to this extent is Batman Begins. Right? The moment where he has like the drunken rant.
Right.
Yeah. I think the difference being though is that in that moment is heroic.
Right.
Because he's doing that as a way to throw everybody out to protect them from Ra's in the League of Shadows.
Right.
In this moment, he's not saving anybody. He's just sort of like putting on the act.
Right.
So he's just a sloppy drunk.
Right. It also reminded me. The other thing it also reminded me of was Year One.
Yeah.
The bit of Commissioner. I don't even know that. I don't know if this woman speaks English.
Right.
But I've been here all this
scene.
Yeah. I've been here all this time. I don't even know. Like he's got some gorgeous woman. He's like, I've been here all weekend with her. I have no idea if she speaks the language. I can guarantee you that I'm not Batman.
Right.
That whole thing. That's not just how committed to the bit he is.
Yeah. He's a weird Bruce Wayne.
But is that the scene where is that the scene where Barbara says the thing about, you said that with Harvey, do you put out milk and cookies for Santa?
Yeah, that's the bit where Harvey's talking to her dad.
Okay. Because I like the idea of already, along with the crooks being at the beginning of the episode are worried about what he is. There's also sort of if we're linking him to Santa, there's sort of a mythic quality, but there's also the idea of like he's something we tell kids to scare kids to keep them in line, or if you don't do what you're supposed to, you're going to be on the naughty list, kind of a thing. I thought that was an interesting take too.
Right. All right. So Ronnie Cobblepot has a real scare in him now. He calls Thorne, begging for protection. It's clear Ronnie was the real traitor all along. Thorne declines the help. After all, he's a rat who just sold out his own mother. So back at the Iceberg Lounge, the party is wrapped, and Penguin learns Ronnie has made a getaway, which confirms him as the Squeal. Ronnie then goes to Barbara for help. He confirms to her that the Penguin is running a mob in Gotham, and that her dad, the commissioner, is the only cop in Gotham he knows isn't bent, and he's willing to talk. He'll tell the commissioner everything if she just takes him to see her dad. She disagrees at first, but when Ronnie reveals that he watched his mom kill his own brother, she agrees to take him. So they're in a car, going to see her dad. There's an attempt on their lives. Ronnie is freaking out that his mom is now on to him. Nice car by Penguin's goons, by the way. Barbara has a gun, which she starts firing back at the hitman, but they soon crash and have to move on foot, using the car as a shield to protect themselves from the hitmen. Enter the Batmobile, who now makes quick work of the hitmen. And then Barbara. I'm going to call her Babs from time to time. She's never called this in the show, but this is colloquially how we refer to her sometimes, because in the comics she's known as Babs a lot, especially when Dick Grayson interacts with her. Yeah. So, that's just how we talk about her a lot on the show. So I may slip and call her Babs from time to time. I may call her Barbara. I just wanted to clear that up, let you guys know. Right. So anyway, Barbara sees Batman, who makes the save and then drives off. So how do we like the Batmobile in this version?
Batmobile's good, but it just runs people over.
It sure does.
He just mowed down like 3 people. I'm sure they're fine, though.
Right.
We don't see them ever again. We don't see them get up, but they're probably fine.
Yeah, it's a little Batman Returns. This is like, or Batman 89, just sort of fishtailing or whatever to people and just being okay with it. But again, I'm sure, rubber bullets, honest. I'm sure they're fine. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with what happened.
It's a weird thing to notice. They somehow nailed the sound effect for the car again.
Yeah.
Like I think about the sound effect of Batman the Animated Series all the time, and just how the Batmobile sounds so awesome in that show. And this is another one where I'm like, it sounds great.
Yeah.
It sounds really, really cool. It's a really stripped down version. It's very sleek. I was surprised at the look of it, considering that this is a 1940s set.
Right.
And they could very easily do the Batmobile with the bat head battering ram and the fin.
Right.
You know, which is around in the 40s, designed in the 40s. I think it would fit perfectly here, but I mean, clearly they wanted to go a different way.
Right.
So yeah, it was a surprise. It's a cool car.
Yeah.
So, all right. Ronnie and Barbara make it to police headquarters. Ronnie pleads to go somewhere else. Jim says, we're safe. We're in police headquarters. But Ronnie says his mom knows and is after him, and all the other cops in the place will sell him out. Plenty of cops on her payroll is what he points out. So we see Bullock and Flass outside eavesdropping. Bullock alerts Penguin. The Fink is talking to Gordon now. She's using face moisturizer, which is a nice, like, regal, snobby vibe. That's kind of like a classic Penguin feel for me.
Right.
I'm digging Flass in this. Flass isn't a character that pops up very often in animation.
Right. Yeah.
But he's always a scumbag. Every time every time he pops up, he's a scumbag.
Right.
But I like, well, no, I shouldn't say it. Flass is never really depicted as not capable either.
Right.
Right.
He's just you know, he beats suspects. You know, he beats on anybody he can.
Right.
Usually is what Flass's deal is. He's just kind of extra violent, even if he doesn't need to be.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Bullock, on the other hand, this is the real change here.
Yes.
Where Bullock is typically depicted as
he's great.
Thought to be dirty, at the worst, thought to be dirty, but isn't.
Right.
And in this one, all but looks as if he's actually dirty here.
Yeah. That's something I'm not crazy about at this point in time in the story, where I was like, I don't like, Bullock was always in a gray area, right? Where it came down to it, like, he'd kind of bend the rules, like he might not do the job exactly like he was supposed to.
Yes,
he was kind of lazy in some ways in that regard too. But then under it all, like, he did have a heart, like he did have a correct heart, like his heart was in the right place under all of that. And yeah, this time he just looks like a dirty cop at this point. At this point in the show.
We'll talk. I mean, again, we'll talk. I've got notes about another thing with Bullock that really was like, what? That we'll talk about when we get to another episode. But I'm not crazy about it. I'm okay with the idea of, it's like Clifton was saying, being in that gray area of, I got to get this done. I may have to cut a corner, but I'm not gonna ultimately, like, I'm not gonna break the law.
Right.
Even with Bullock stuff of, like, being anti-Batman, it was still from a place of, like, no, we do the job, he doesn't have to.
Right.
Or we should be able to handle the job, he doesn't have to do this. Right.
I don't have a lot to say on it just because I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see where it goes. I mean, we are in the age of setup for everything. And I don't mean just for this show. I mean for literally everything everybody watches. Everything's set up for something down the road. So it does make me go, is there something more coming with this? So I don't really have a comment on Bullock yet, but it's just interesting. Yeah. It is interesting because he's definitely dirty and a clown, and not a whole lot of people respect him. And that's again, a big, like Dent, a big change for a character that I do think, is beloved to some Batman fans. Certainly this Batman fan.
Right here.
Right.
Right here. So this guy too.
All right, so let's close out the episode. So so Ronnie alerts them that Penguin has a military-grade long-range cannon on the Iceberg Lounge, which can hit any target in the city, and she knows where he is now.
Right.
Barbara and Commissioner shift immediately to evacuating the police department. Batman arrives on the Iceberg Lounge in a submarine.
Yes.
Penguin is a little shocked that Batman is real. Batman fights Penguin's goons. And here's where we get a reveal of a more physical version of the Penguin who fights him off a little bit.
Right.
Batman defeats her, but makes a mistake and Judo throws her towards the gun. He makes the stop initially, but she's able to fire it anyway because she has her umbrella in hand and she's able to pull the lever.
Right.
Bullock in the police station is getting way ahead of everybody as he's like knocking people down to get out of the place. Barbara stops to help somebody who is cuffed to a table.
Right.
Everybody gets out. Police headquarters blows up.
Yep.
Back on the Iceberg Lounge, Batman has rounded everybody up. Everybody's cuffed. Penguin remarks that they all lose. And then we have a scene outside the police department again, which is now on fire. Everybody's bleeding. Everybody's bandaged up. Barbara says they got lucky. And by the way, this Batman is real and has a nice car. This is her remarks to her dad. And then we end on the Batcave again. Penguin's operation going down was actually keeping Thorne in check. Batman remarks that he's failed tonight because now he's served up the city to Thorne. And that's episode 1. What do we think?
I like the fight. I like the bit about Dracula. Again, if you're going to make him mythic. Yes, Virginia, there is a whatever she says. I can't remember the line exactly. Something about Dracula. But I thought that was cool. I like the fight. I honestly was, I'm sitting there watching the episode and I'm like, please let that guy be Rhino. Please let that guy be Rhino. Please let the guy be Rhino.
I know, me too.
Please let the guy, and he wasn't. And it's fine. We still might get him. It doesn't mean we won't get him at some point or later, but I was hoping, oh, cool, Rhino. Yep. But no, he wasn't.
Ventriloquist henchman.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. The big, like, massive guy. Yeah. No, I had the exact same thought.
Yeah. The fight was fine. Again, going back to our, review, the review of the trailer. I was really hoping for, like I said, I was hoping for a much smarter Penguin. I really did want the international waters feel of having a boat. Again, that's just my own expectation. So I really have no one to be mad at. It's just we didn't get something I thought we were going to get, which I thought would have made sense, but that's just me. Because again, I wanted it to be like, that's cool and all, but I'm wearing international waters. I'm not. You can't really take me in, but that was not what we got.
Right.
Blowing up the headquarters, that's a big deal. Again, I really want the feel of, not necessarily, again, like you said, a lot of things are set up. And I don't necessarily need the season to give me an overarching bad guy or an overarching villain. But I like the idea of not every villain is in 22 minutes going to be put in the clink. I think you need that.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's a modern affectation of Batman stuff, is that, no, there's lots of people operating in Gotham doing all sorts of things at the same time. And sometimes someone comes to prominence or someone comes to try to step up to Batman or whatever. But I think the idea of having a character like Penguin alongside Rupert Thorne, as Zach, you and I have talked about the idea of that crossing over of mobs and then mobsters and then supervillains and gimmicks. And the idea that there's going to be overlay as that shakes out, right? And there's going to be guys who don't want to put on a costume and fight Batman, but still want to do criminal stuff.
Yeah.
So, again, all in all, I liked the episode. I thought it was good. The only thing is you get that kind of stinger at the end of like, there's, it's going to get worse. And we don't necessarily get that right away. So, thought that was, again, it felt like, okay, well, surely this is going to be an ongoing thing. And we'll talk more about it as we talk about the next 2 episodes.
Right.
Yeah.
Clifton, what about you?
No, I like the episode. I was going back, like, I like the sub. I liked seeing the bad sub.
Right.
I don't know. I'm just a sucker for that stuff. But I like that he has all these gimmicks. So we're not going to, spend all these episodes getting origins of things. We don't have to get an origin of a Batmobile.
That's
we don't have to get
point.
an origin of every piece of equipment that he gets. Like, he's just got them all already. That's fine. I'll buy it. I'll take it.
That is a good point. That could get exhausting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I thought, like, I remember when the first time I saw the sub, I was like, that seems fast.
Right, yeah. Because this is like week 2, right? This is like week 2. He's been playing it ahead a while, I guess.
Yeah. I kind of agree with you here, Frank, a little bit, where, like, it is interesting to me that Penguin gets shut down the first day.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a day. But, I mean, clearly, we're going to get a season 2, right? Like,
Right.
So I'm curious where that's going to go. I'll echo what you said about sort of like the mobs versus like the gimmick mobs and everything. I mean, like, Penguin's gang is like far more interesting already than Thorne's.
Right.
And that may just be by nature that we don't actually see Thorne's gangs a whole lot, except for the guys that get beat up in the beginning. Right. We definitely spend a lot more time with Penguins. So that's not a crack on Thorne's. It's just that Penguins is sort of fleshed out immediately.
Mm-hmm.
I
love the kids. The kids. Like, I want more of them. I want more of that stuff, I think. And
Ronnie and Aaron. Oh, well, Ronnie.
Yeah, like Ronnie and Aaron. and I had the idea too, right? Because it's like there's a bit in her cabaret scene where, like, there's a moment where like men have an attraction to her or something.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought that I'm like, this is so easy to introduce, like, kids she has with other men.
Yeah.
Right? To just pop up and be like all over the gang. Like that's, I hope that that's something that we're going to get down the line.
Right.
But will they all be voiced by Paul Scheer?
Right.
Because
they should.
he voiced the two that we got in this
Yes,
episode.
They definitely should be.
For 1940s, which doesn't really make a whole lot of references to other things, like the canon feels very World War II to me.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And that I dug too. I thought that was really, really cool. And
yeah, it was like a giant anti-aircraft artillery.
Yeah.
It just wheels out of that boat.
Yeah, one of those ones you crank to get turned around. Yeah.
This is something I think that the show does really well. And it's tough it's really striking to say something like this for a character that's been around for 85 years. This is the first time I watch a Batman anything, and I feel like I'm getting to know that Batman for the first time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of don't know how this Batman ticks yet.
Right.
And, I mean, for somebody who's basically, like, read and watched everything Batman, that's crazy to feel.
Sure.
That's and I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. So, no, I like this episode a lot. I thought very, very cool.
Okay.
You guys want to do episode 2?
Let's do it. But
All
before we jump in, I do have one like random thought that's just kind of in general. I didn't get to cover at the beginning, but my one random aside thought of all of this is how weird is it that the show is on Prime?
Right.
Because I swear, every time I've gone to watch it, I open up the HBO Max app and look for it in my continue watching list.
And it's not there.
Before I remember it's on Amazon Prime and not on the service that Warner Brothers Discovery owns.
Yeah. It's super weird.
Yep.
That's just my random aside thought about it all. Because like every time I'd go to watch an episode, I'm like, oh, I'm in the wrong app.
Yep.
So easily could have been on Adult Swim too, like My Adventures with Superman.
Yep, easily.
Which was announced at the same time.
Easily.
Literally the same day. The two were announced at the same time.
Yeah.
Premiere spaced out, obviously. But anyway. All right. Episode 2, And Be a Villain is the title. Written by Greg Rucka. Directed by Matt Peters. This is interesting already to me. Like, we knew Ed Brubaker was attached for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
We didn't know necessarily that Greg Rucka was gonna get a script here. So that was a cool surprise. All right, so cold open. So a car pulls up on a residential street. A beautiful woman is dropped off. Something approaches from behind. It's a POV tracking shot, so we never see who or what it is. And we end on the woman's horrified face. Then the opening rolls. We come back. We see the new police station headquarters, or temporary police station headquarters. We're not sure exactly. Bruce Wayne is being questioned by Detective Renee Montoya. Bruce tries to bribe as a way to keep his family name out of the papers. Montoya, however, is not for sale. Yvonne Francis was the woman in the cold open, a famous movie star, and now she's missing. But before she was attacked, the last person to see her was Bruce Wayne. As we learn, he was the one dropping her off. Enter Lucius Fox, Bruce's lawyer. Bruce is not a suspect, just being questioned in the missing persons case. Lucius points out, however, though, that he was brought down to the station instead of being questioned at his home. As a result, all further questions will go through him. Bruce and Lucius exit. Bruce in the car with Alfred now praises Montoya as an honest police detective. Sharp, intelligent, and incorruptible means that she could be potentially an asset. Montoya meets with Commissioner Gordon in his office. He reiterates that at the moment, all they have is a missing person, not a crime. Montoya, though, details that there has been no sign of Yvonne Francis for 2 days, and something feels wrong. She can feel it. Bruce offering Montoya a bribe, huh? I like it.
It's a good bit.
It's a good moment.
Yeah. Because it does the dual duty of him like being the vapid playboy.
Right.
Yep.
Pushing that, him selling that idea, but then also testing her to see who can he trust in the police department.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I like that he recognizes right away her value, which I think is interesting. Again, it's a situation of I like the fact that in this episode there's a fair amount of dames can't do police work.
Yeah.
You know, which I think they do a pretty good job of dealing how difficult it would be to be a woman who's a police officer, much less a detective. You know,
right
at that time. So that was pretty cool.
She's Montoya's true to form here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is probably one of the more faithful, interpretations that we've got. Like, you know, she's a good cop and everything. we actually see she's not very self-destructive, which is we've seen from time to time in the comics.
Right. Especially in Brubaker running comics.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows what's coming in future episodes, but yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty traditional take on her. And it's pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
How about Lucius as the lawyer?
I was trying to remember, what is he traditionally in the different versions we've gotten? Is he like, he usually works for Wayne Corp?
Right.
Yeah.
But he's not usually the lawyer, right? He's not usually like a CFO or something.
He's typically a CFO. He's typically like a money guy, like one of the best money guys in the world. Right. And then comes Batman Begins, and then Lucius is the gadget guy.
Right. He's Q,
which is a fantastic addition to the character, I think. But interesting that as far as we know, that's not the relationship here.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. No. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I think I was like, oh wow, they got the Lucius quick.
Yeah. It's like some of the others. This is a setup I'm not sold on yet.
Okay.
So we'll see.
All right. Montoya goes to Monoscope Pictures. She interviews Basil Carlo, a movie star, about Frances. Basil is genuinely concerned. He's been in a few films with her. He's a star akin to Boris Karloff and Vincent Price, often playing bad guys. He mentions rumors that she was running with the wrong crowd and getting into trouble, but reiterates that they're just rumors and he didn't give them much thought. His next film is about to begin production and was again set to star with her, and this was going to be the first time he was going to see her in months. He cuts his conversation with Montoya short, though, because he has a meeting with his director, Edmund Haynes, and can't keep him waiting. Haynes' assistant, though, meets with Montoya and is showing pictures of Frances from just last Tuesday. Basil's in the background of these shots. She also sees that Haynes didn't have any meetings scheduled with Carlo. Montoya seeks out Carlo and gets his address from studio security. We see that Batman is tailing Montoya. Montoya arrives at Carlo's home. We see Batman has been tailing her. She hears a scream from inside Carlo's apartment and finds his body upon entering. Unknown to her, the killer is on the fire escape and has a confrontation with Batman. The killer runs. Batman chases after. And in the sequence, Batman gets a sample of the killer's scarf, which leads him a clue, but also reveals the killer's disfigured face before getting away. Frances, we now see, is in a luxury bedroom, which is a movie set. There's a doctor tending to her who says to save her energy because she'll need it for her scenes. She then discovers that she's chained prisoner and cries for help. So we got our first look at the killer. What do you think?
I like the design.
Yeah.
Me too.
It's a fun design when we're not sure what's going on, because first he looks like the Shadow.
Yeah, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or even Crimson Avenger from early Detective Comics. Before kind of looking like Lon Chaney's Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, there's definitely that for sure.
And I like both of those.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking House of Wax.
That could be too.
That's the one that got me.
Vincent Price, yeah.
Right. Once the reveal in that movie, I thought that's really close. No, I thought that was a cool chase scene too. I dug that this whole thing. So, all right, Montoya tells Gordon she was sure Carlo was a suspect, but now he's a victim. Gordon says he lied, so find out maybe why he lied, and you find out who killed him, and maybe you find out where Frances is. We get a nice moment where Montoya kicks herself, saying Gordon took a big risk making her detective and she let him down. He says, not yet, she hasn't. She leaves and goes back to her desk, where we see Harvey Dent is in the bullpen with Flass and Bullock and other cops. Dent inquires about the case. Now that it's the Basil Carlo murder case, it's high profile. If she gets him an arrest, he can make them both look good in the trial, which could do wonders for his mayoral campaign, but Montoya couldn't care less. He says she better start caring because after he wins mayor, she'll want to be on his good side.
Right.
As Dent leaves, good luck, Gotham's finest. You too, Bullock. Bullock's a joke. Meanwhile, the film's producer is yelling about how his money's being wasted, about these mad scientist sets just sitting there, and he wants another girl to replace Frances pronto. The killer sneaks onto the set behind producer Lou Valentine, blinds him with studio lights. Producer falls back, knocking over some of the set props. Water spills everywhere, and then the killer knocks over a movie light and electrocutes the producer, killing him. In the Batcave, Batman finds some kind of silicate on the scarf and an MPW monogram, Monoscope Pictures wardrobe. Killer has access to the studio, he deduces. Montoya arrives at the studio, interviews actor Daryl Manning. He says Basil was one of the finest actors he ever worked with and one of the finest of this generation. What a loss. She asks if other people shared his opinion, and he says everyone who worked with him knew, but he didn't have the right face.
Mm-hmm.
Montoya interviews next studio seamstress, who's worked with Carlo and Francis a lot. Turns out he was in love with Francis, and while she respected him, she did not return his feelings. In a flashback, Francis says it was unfair that he wasn't a leading man. If only he didn't look the way he looks, he would have been a star. So it makes Carlo desperate to do something about his looks. What do we think so far?
This definitely plays out like a old-timey mystery, which is why it's so dense, which is why there's so many threads going on. It's definitely like a, Agatha Christie. It's a Poirot. It's of the time period. So I like that. I like that they're capturing the spirit of entertainment at the time that this is set, this 1940s world that we're in, and they're trying to get the vibe across of like, House of Wax, of the horror, of the noir, of the mysteries of the time. And it's cool. It's just like a really cool mood and tone and for an episode. It's very different than the first episode, but I do dig it for that. I do dig that they're really exploring the tone of the time of their fictional time in this one.
I like sort of the Easter eggs in the background that are like the old movie poster looking things that you see hanging around that are, some I'm sure are direct homages to actual movies, but it's more like a stylistic look that I just think they nail of those early like 1930s, 1940s movie posters that I think is really, really cool. And I was surprised going back to the first one that we didn't get title cards in some way.
Yeah.
Right.
And those posters in the background made me go, that's how it could have been done. You could have made them look like old 1930s movie posters and did them at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So not to spoil anything. I thought, no, it's a dense episode. What I also like about it is how Montoya and Batman are investigating from two different angles, but kind of find themselves in the same places.
Right.
Right.
Which is a nice deal. So
one thing I loved was Lou Valentine. Just because it gives John DiMaggio a chance to do John Polito.
Yeah.
Which I thought was fantastic. And I wanted so much more of that. But I thought it was cool. I think there's the line about, is that the portion there where someone says something about Miss Frances and no Gloria Swanson? Which Gloria Swanson was, if you don't know better, was a big star of the time. But yeah, the John Polito bit I thought was great. I thought that really was good. Did you mention? Maybe I zoned. Did you mention that Harvey also has punchline is double or nothing?
No, I didn't mention that, but yes.
Okay. Along with the good side bit, the other one was the double or nothing.
Still smarmy.
Oh, for sure.
Still smarmy.
Still smart.
No change.
Nope. Yep.
All right. Director Hayes is now the next interview for Montoya. He says Carlo turned to a makeup artist and con man Jack Ellman. In a flashback, Ellman says his treatment will remake Carlo's career. He just needs more time and money. Basil agrees. Later, Carlo and Ellman argue. Carlo either wants his money back or results. They argue. Carlo calls him a fraud. Ellman punches him in the face, and then Ellman is fired on the spot. This is about 2 months ago. Batman overhears all of this while still tailing Montoya. Back in the studio, the killer attempts to kill Hayes. Batman steps in. We have an awesome sword fight on the movie set, but the killer gets away and brings down the whole set on top of Batman. Batman escapes through a floor vent or a trapdoor, and he finds two bodies stashed under the stage, producer Lou Valentine and actor Daryl Manning. Batman remarks the problem is Montoya just interviewed Manning an hour ago. East End, Lark Avenue. Montoya is about to confront Ellman. She radios requesting backup. Flash responds that he and Bullock are on their way. And then they stay put eating sandwiches in the car.
They're the worst.
Montoya waits. No one comes, so she goes in alone to the shabby abandoned building. Elman answers the door. He has questions about Carlo. He had no idea he was dead and shows concern, invites her in to talk. And then we go to the morgue where Batman investigates Carlo's body, and he pokes the face and his finger just sinks all the way into the face. And he goes, "This isn't Carlo." Back with Montoya now, Elman says, pardon the surroundings, he needed the place to continue his work. He asks how she found him, and he grabs a pipe discreetly. She remarks, "I'm a detective. You didn't make it easy to find you if it makes you feel any better. Some people do things the easy way or the hard way. Which is he?" He attacks her. She dodges him and punches him in the face. His face is dented with a fist print. She's stunned, and then he nails her with the pipe, knocking her out. All right. It's a lot. This is a big procedural episode. Which here's what I dig. Okay. I dig that they're careful enough that everybody she interviews, they have in the scene of the flashback to explain how they know that information.
Right.
I like that they went that little extra mile.
I liked all that. I thought it was weird that there's no autopsy on Basil Carlo. That Batman's the one that has to go figure out, okay, it's not really him. But
I don't know how fast autopsies happened in 1940s. So.
I don't know. I mean, I always feel like you get those scenes of like, the humorless or the way too comfortable,
like medical examiner,
like I've got to do the Y incision and open them up and all that kind of stuff. You get a lot of those in those movies or those like TV shows set in those times. So it's possible. The other thing I thought was just, again, was we talk about Bullock. It's one thing to, again, think that dames can't do police work and can't be detectives. It's another thing to turn off your radio and leave her to possibly die.
Yeah.
That was the thing that I was just like, I get it. I get what you're going for. But we all, again, Flass is not usually anything other than, a terrible cop and a terrible person. Bullock, again, has some nuance. And I wonder... again, you're basically giving him a situation where he's not very likable early on, where you could have let another, regardless of whether they're a police officer or not, another person to basically go in a situation where they could have died. So again, that to me is like, again, I'm like, I get it, but it's not. There are consequences to the idea of letting someone else, knowingly, as a character, much less the fact that she could have, obviously spoiler, she doesn't, but.
Yeah.
I didn't care for that.
What gets me about that scene, it's a small thing. He asks, "Do we have any pickles left over?" And Flass is holding one and clearly eats in front of him. He's like, "No." And I'm like, man, even his partner doesn't respect him.
Right. The Bullock that we know would have punched him in the face.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the Bullock that we know, that we established from other stuff, wouldn't take that from him. So... Again, I hope, like you said, I hope in the long, they're playing the long game and we're going to get some better Bullock stuff. But so far, not really a big fan of how they're portraying Bullock.
Okay. Going to the finale now. Montoya is tied to a chair. The killer is there. She says, "Carlo?" And he says, "Yes, good detective, 'tis I." And then asks, what happened to his face? He tells the story. Elman promised he could fix it. Injects his face, makes the face more pliable. Went to Frances with a new face. She rejects him. He's kind of surprised. And then the procedure starts to go bad. His face starts to droop and melt. He says she refused to play her part. And now we see that moment is the opening sequence from the cold open. So now he's talking about how the fact that his face is pliable, he could play anyone. The Carlo body is Elman, made to look like Carlo. And he impersonated Manning. Behind them is a set. Francis is held hostage. Jealous of all the parts he was never able to play. After a lifetime of playing the heavy, the thug, the brute, the scoundrel, he says, he realizes it was perfect casting all along, and villain was the part he was born to play.
Right.
Francis doesn't agree. She got her gag free. She doesn't believe his performance, and she's starting to get to him. So this is when he says, I'll show you what's real, and then he turns on the giant sickle that's hanging over her. It's gonna come down and cut her in half.
Right.
Batman drops in through the skylight. A batarang frees one of Montoya's wrists. She's able to untie herself. Montoya goes to free Francis while Batman fights off Clayface, who's coming at him with an axe. Batman disarms Clayface and then punches him, knocking him out. And his face gets turned to mush from all the hits, which is a cool visual. So now with the killer down, Montoya draws her gun on Batman.
Right.
She's going to take him in. And then this is the moment where Flash and Bullock finally arrive, which gives Batman the distraction he needs to escape. They see Batman escape through the skylight. And then after the room clears, Montoya picks up her hat and finds a radio bug falling off of it. She goes to pick it up. And then we see Batman driving in the Batmobile, and we hear Montoya saying, "I know you're still listening. We're not done, you and me." And that's the end of episode 2.
Yeah, I like the end. I like the whole close of the episode a lot.
I do too.
I didn't have much to say, going on, but like I do really like this episode a lot.
Me too.
I'm a big Clayface fan in general. Normally, obviously, the Matt Hagen Clayface we're more used to in the animated stuff, but this had elements of the Matt Hagen that they had borrowed from the previous ones to put into Matt Hagen, I think, in the earlier version. But no, I just like the Clayface episodes overall. I think it's very good, like setting for the time period, like even in Batman the Animated Series before. A lot of good quote lines that I took down notes of in that final bit, which you referenced, Zach. The line where he says, "I can be anyone, fool everyone," and that villain was the role he was born to play. And then Miss Francis, as played by the great Lacey Chabert from many of my favorite Hallmark movies, as well as her numerous voice acting appearances. Yep, Zatanna in Young Justice.
Gwen.
Gwen in Spectacular. Yeah. So I like that she had like a really good little monologue that comes out of nowhere because she's never said a line in this episode.
Right.
Prior to this. We hear her scream at the beginning, and then she's gagged the rest of the time we see her. And then she gets like a really cool monologue where she's like, "I don't buy it. Like, I don't buy this. I don't buy you as a villain." And it's great. Yeah. I love that it just takes him down. And that's what it's all about. He thought he was the greatest actor. And she's like, nah, this isn't working.
Right.
And that's all it takes.
Yeah. You're hamming it up a bit. Yeah, no. I like this episode a lot.
Yeah.
I thought this was really, really, really strong. There's another Bullock joke in there where he goes to help Francis and she's like, "I've had enough horror for the last few days," and walks out by herself. And I'm like, God, this is a running gag for sure. And I'm so curious to see where it's going to pay off. We're hitting Bullock a lot, but it's just such a big change. Frank, what about you?
I like the monologue too. I thought that was a good bit. I do like the fact that Montoya, once she realizes, that he's been, bugging her, isn't afraid, just basically basically again take it to him after trying to arrest him. I thought that was a nice bit too. I liked it overall. I thought the episode was pretty good, and it's again the idea of it being the original, kind of straddling the line between the original Clayface, the one from the comics way back, and then a little of the Matt Hagen Clayface. I thought was cool as well.
Yeah, I mean, worth pointing out that, so people, I think, will see this and maybe go like, "Oh, they're taking the Matt Hagen stuff and making this new thing." Well, no, I mean, Matt Hagen in the comics was actually originally just like a thug.
Right. They had taken elements of these and put them on him.
Exactly. Yeah. For animated series, they had borrowed bits of Basil Karlo character and used it for the Matt Hagen version in Batman the Animated Series. So this one was just more of a true... let's do Basil as he was.
Right.
Which he is an old character. He goes back to 1940.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. We'll get to episode 3, which is a Catwoman episode, but interesting to point out that of the 3 villains focused in these first 3, the most recent is Penguin, who came out in 1942.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Clayface and Catwoman both predate Penguin.
Yep.
Wow.
And he's never called Clayface in the episode, which is why I called him the Killer the whole time. But I wanted to sort of honor that. But yes, I mean Clayface for sure. Yeah.
They should take a score at home. It's actually Clayface.
Yeah. All right, episode 3, last one for this part.
Yep.
Kiss of the Catwoman, story by Ed Brubaker and Bruce Timm, teleplay by Adama Ebo and Adan Ebo, directed by Christopher Berkeley. All right, so we open on the Gotham Museum. The press, including Gotham Gazette photographer Eel O'Brien, is covering a new exhibit showcasing jewels loaned by some of Gotham's wealthiest, among them a set of pearls from the Wayne collection.
Right.
Selina Kyle's admiring them, and Bruce Wayne is admiring Selina Kyle. They flirt for a bit. Bruce playfully asks if he should be worried about the pearls. He said he heard that things go missing around Miss Kyle. She remarks that she likes nice things, and sometimes they accidentally come home with her. She said a few slaps on the wrist in court, but everything everyone's heard is mostly gossip. She suggests that he buy her a drink, and says that he's taken out just about every other eligible bachelorette, and he hasn't taken her out. And because they're orphans, they have so much in common. But Bruce rebuts, your dad's in prison for tax fraud.
Right. You're not an orphan.
Exactly. Right. So another member of the press guesses that the pearls are valued around $10,000 and adds, who wears pearls like that in Crime Alley? What do you expect? Bruce overhears and punches the guy in the face, which is all caught on camera.
Yep.
And then the open rolls. All right. We'll do the cold open first. What do you guys think?
Eel O'Brien, I'll take him in just about anything.
Sure.
Right. I had the thought of, is he a legit photographer or is he casing the place? That was my first thought.
I didn't think that. I was like, is he a legit photographer or is he paparazzi? I was like, what is this? And then I was like, oh, he's both. Like he's pretty much both.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's one of those things where a lot of guys that were doing that did newspaper stuff also freelances. They took pinup photos. They did they did paparazzi stuff. They did detective work by to take a picture of people who cheated on their wives or spouses or whatever. So I figured he was that guy, but I also had that moment. I did have that moment of, is he just looking at how tight security is to see if he's going to do the second story bit of coming in as a thief? So,
right. Because again, established character, another established character where we're coming in saying like, oh, what's he this time?
Yeah.
So I like that. I thought that was a fun inclusion. The banter between the two of them was a good bit. I like the sometimes things come home with me. I thought that was the double entendre was nice. I thought it was a clever way to get the pearls in without getting us the pearl bit.
Right. Yeah.
I thought that worked incredibly well. I'm like, oh, that's how they're going to do it, so we don't have to see the imagery again.
Right.
While at the same time getting mileage out of it. I thought that was nice.
Yeah.
Hold that thought too. We'll get to that. That's a good observation.
Also, the idea that Bruce is not quite as polished in his mask isn't always quite tight.
Right. Yeah. So this episode, like I do really like everything about this intro. I like how much again is established prior to this about Selina and about Bruce and how much they know about each other. That they both know about each other, so we both know about them. So we don't have to see all of it from an origin point, over and over again, all these characters we've seen many times before.
Right.
So I think they're being very good about, they're being very judicious about what they choose to show and what they choose to kind of skim over. And I think it works for that. So I really liked that we're like, oh yeah, like he knows her deal, she knows his deal, and that's the point we're picking up at now.
Yeah.
And then the pearls thing, I was like, man, it's a low blow. So what the guy says, not Bruce's reaction. Like Bruce's reaction, like, okay, he's got a bit of a temper. But my favorite thing about it was when Selina's like, oh my.
Yeah, right.
Like she digs it.
Yeah.
She's entertained by it. And that's Bruce. And so we'll get into more of that as the episode goes on. But like you can tell like she likes that.
Right.
Which I thought was a really funny, nice bit.
Yeah, that's not a turnoff for her at all.
Yeah. Eel O'Brien surprised me.
Yeah.
I mean, like just the fact that it was him, that really surprised me. I was like, oh, okay. Huh. I'm fine with it. I'm absolutely fine with it. But I'm just like, wow, of all the like characters who become things.
Right.
Like that's the one we're getting to first. To a broader DC here.
Right.
This feels very, traditional as far as like Bruce and Selina, Batman Selina stuff. Like it feels like like what we know, right?
Right. Yeah.
Maybe that continues, maybe not. We'll see.
Right.
But I thought that was interesting. What gets me about the punch, and this is again a little bit the Batman that I feel like I'm still getting to know. What surprises me is that like that may be the most impulsive move I think I've ever seen Bruce Wayne make.
Yeah.
Right? For a character that's all about like control and discipline, right? And restraint.
Right.
Like to get emotional and just hit somebody.
Yeah.
Is a big departure.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So the open rolls. Newspapers have now run the pictures of Bruce hitting the guy. To avoid jail time, Bruce's lawyer worked out with the DA's office that he just needs to attend some therapy sessions with Dr. Harleen Quinzel.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce clearly doesn't want to be there. He spots his file on Harley's table. Harley probes about Bruce's childhood tragedy, which makes him uncomfortable. He doesn't want to discuss it. He's saying he's over it now. She says repressed trauma is something that you might not realize you're dealing with until something happens. We then flash back to the moments after the Wayne murders. Alfred stands with a young Bruce as he tells the police that he can't remember any details about the killer. It was too dark, couldn't see, and Alfred insists on taking him home. We cut to present day. Alfred is driving Bruce after the therapy session. He's asking him about therapy, and Bruce says it was a waste of an hour and that Dr. Quinzel thinks she can get into my head. Alfred, on the other hand, though, suggests that maybe some good can come out of these sessions. Bruce says that's not going to happen and thumbs through his file, which he stole. And inside is a note with a smiley face that reads, "See you next Tuesday, Dr. Quinzel."
Right.
What do we think about this take on Harley?
This one seems pretty faithful. This one, similarly to Montoya, slightly different, but not that different. And it's again, like these are the one, it's another character like Montoya that they basically created, if I remember right. Like the Montoya we know started in the animated series, if I remember right. Yep. So it's the one that they basically birthed in the animated series. And Harley Quinn is as well. Harleen Quinzel is as well. So it's interesting to me that those aren't the ones that they're diverting as much as some of the others that had, multiple previous takes before them.
Well, that's a good take.
And Harley, like, we don't see this Harleen Quinzel in the animated series, but it is her backstory. So I feel like we're just seeing the backstory that we kind of skimmed over or only saw in pieces in the animated series. That's what I feel like we're getting at this point. Like, this is who she was before Batman the animated series.
Yeah, I like the fact that we get to see her as being competent at her job, and that she was she was serious about it
and good at it.
Right? I think that's important because we don't get that component. We get sort of the Mad Love version in the original animated series, and get sort of. And since then, we've had moments of in the comics and other places had moments of her in her own show, the HBO Max show. You get a little of that where she kind of. She at one point I think she's actually talking to Bruce, not to give anything away, but she just basically, does this bit where she basically breaks something down for him, and he's surprised. She's like, that was my job. That's what I did before all of this,
Right.
So I like the idea that we get to see her in that role, and I love the bit about him stealing the file and her knowing that he stole the file. I thought was nice too.
Right.
Yeah,
but yeah, I liked it. I thought all that stuff was good. I thought all that stuff. The idea that he's already like, nope, dismiss it out of hand. It's a waste of an hour is interesting. I kind of think if you frame it at the time, it makes a lot more sense than him just being dismissive of it. Because at the time, not everyone was okay with the idea of therapy or talking to a psychologist or psychiatrist.
Oh, right. In this time setting of the 1940s.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And people were much more, there was a much heavier connotation if you were thought to be seeing someone or people found out that you were.
Right.
Like it was not nearly as acceptable or as healthy as it might be now. So that's one of the things where I thought that was an interesting thing of like him dismissing out of hand was interesting to me. But I think they should have hit it a little harder, being like, nope, I can't let people think that I've got something wrong with me.
Interesting observation. Good observation. That's true. That's a good point. All right. So we're in Selina's penthouse. We see a lot of cats and trophies of karate and ballet and gymnastics. So she's capable. It's mid-afternoon, and Greta, her maid, is waking Selina up. She lets her know that bills are past due, and they're going to turn off the electricity soon. And Greta also remarks that she would like to get paid again sometime.
Right.
Selena says it's not her fault that Dad left her with nothing. Selena reads about Batman in the newspaper, and she gets an idea, and then asks Greta if they still have a sewing machine. Wipe 2, Catwoman in costume. Fabulous, right? That's what she says. Greta isn't a fan. We get a newspaper montage of the cat burglars' many robberies. And then we're in a jewelry store, and Catwoman is cracking a safe. Policemen Flass and Bullock find her. She makes a getaway, scratching Bullock's face. She makes it to the alley, and Batman appears, and she's attracted to him immediately, and she tells him that he inspired her. Right. Batman ropes her legs and leaves her for Flass and Bullock, who take her in. She's put in the car and sees his Batmobile driving off, admiring it. What do we think? I know you love the design, Frank.
I do. It is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite designs of all of them. I like that. I was trying to, and I'm still trying to work this out. The way they play her is she's obviously a lot lighter than some other versions, and a little more frivolous. And it's one of those things where I was trying to treat it to its source and try to figure out what that was. I kept coming back to like screwball comedies of like the 40s.
Okay.
And the idea of like the frivolous sort of again, but this is not an act. It's the kind of like that she is sort of, a little zany, a little wacky, right, about her perceptions about how the world works. And not in a sexist way. It just was one of those things where she just sees things differently. Kind of the bored heiress that decides, I can just put on a costume and do this too. But again, I couldn't find, I kept looking for like what I thought, I kept like Carol Lombard or someone along, or Jean Arthur or somebody along those lines. Right. But I couldn't find I couldn't zero in on the exact thing. But that was what I kept coming back to in my mind of, they're playing her that way. Yeah. And I like it. I think it's fun. And we haven't got to the point where I really think it works, but I think it's in the next scene that we talk about, I think. Or is it where that, because again, is Harvey in this scene? I can't remember. Is Harvey stuff when she gets pulled in, or is that the next, after the
that's the next stuff.
Okay, I'll mention it when we get back to that, because it's something that they make a very important distinction that I think doesn't always get made about her, but I think I may have mentioned it before.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I like the character a lot. I really like the portrayal. I like the design, both the costume we're talking about, the classic purple with the green cape, purple dress, green cape, fantastic classic design. But also just in general, like her overall animation design for this, even before the costume, I've liked a lot in this. Yeah. And Christina Ricci's fantastic.
She is really good.
As the
She's
voice.
Very good.
And I should say, Jamie Chung is Harleen Quinzel, who I've also like in this episode. I like a lot. So we'll see what happens later. But for now, like I really like both of their performances a lot. But Christina Ricci's fantastic as Catwoman, and like the flirtiness and like the little bit of edge to it. And yeah, you do like she's definitely flighty. It seems in this. But then there's hints of like the darkness, like when she said she was an orphan because her father's in jail. Like she obviously has some stuff going on there, with that side of the family. So maybe we'll see that later. But for now, yeah, she's definitely very flighty and just looking for a good time. It seems at this point in the show. I like that she was kind of picked up so fast. I don't know why. It's just, it kind of goes to the flightiness. Like she really didn't think this through.
No, not at all.
Like she just jumped in and did it, and then it didn't work out for now.
Catwoman is sort of like, they don't, in the comics early on, like 40s and stuff, I always felt that she's in and out of prison. Right?
Yeah.
And she's sort of, that's the thing. She's the cat at first. And then she's Catwoman, and then she's kind of like this whole thing of, trying to reinvent herself to be, which I thought was kind of like a nice bit. And the other thing is, the other thing I thought about was Brave and the Bold, the animated, the idea that's the purple dress and the cape is what they go with there. And it's kind of one of those things of, I don't know who on staff has the affinity, unless they all do, have the affinity for that.
They can see them all liking it.
But yeah, it was just interesting. That's what we get again. Again, I'm all for it. I love that version of her too. But I just thought it was interesting. That's what we got. So
I get the sense too. Also, the in and out of prison thing, which again is also like really wasn't ready for it to come up as much as it has. But like Batman 66 a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's the feeling I get too.
Yeah, that too.
All right, so we flash back to Alfred driving young Bruce home. Alfred asks if he would like some hot cocoa, but Bruce is silent. Catatonic.
Yeah.
Smash cut to back in Harley's office. We have another session. Bruce apologizes for zoning out. He's a little hungover, late night with a lady friend. Harley says she was saying last session that he was repressing the impact of his parents' murders, and his womanizing is perhaps a way of shielding himself from more pain. In the courthouse, I guess the same day, Selina is putting on an act and suggesting that the jewel thefts were Batman and not her, and that she just happened to be there at the same time. The case is dismissed when Harvey drops the charges, stating that there's no evidence that it was her and not Batman. And so she will get another second chance.
Right.
Barbara asks Harvey Dent if she's a donor for his campaign, and that's why she's getting special treatment. And he remarks, "No, she's flat broke." Greta picks up Selina from court, and Selina tells her she needs to get some work done on the car. Back at police HQ, Bullock is getting heckled by another cop, Cohen, for letting Selina go, or letting Selina get the drop on him, rather. Flash stops Bullock from punching him and says Selina's running out of lives, and she just doesn't know it yet. Cut to Bruce getting some rounds in on the heavy bag, in strongman briefs.
As you do.
Yes, of course. There's a news report recounting Selina let go without charges, and Bruce is pissed. All right. Frank, Harvey, go ahead.
Well, again, there's, like you mentioned, another second chance, but he does say, which is, again, a distinction that's made throughout her character for quite some time, is she's just a jewel thief. She's not a villain. Right? And that's like the tag that she gets tagged with quite often throughout her history is, there are the killers, there are the, your psychopaths, and then there's, she steals stuff. And I thought that was an interesting distinction that they make early on. Again, playing into the whole idea of like, well, it's kind of frivolous, it's kind of fun, but it's not as dangerous as, say, like Penguin trying to blow up police headquarters or, another villain doing something actually horrific. So I thought that was an interesting distinction that they made and plays into, like, again, back into what we know of her and what we've known for quite some time. I do think it's interesting that the idea of Greta is sort of like her Alfred.
Right.
I thought that was a nice bit too. Just the idea of the like she has someone in her life that does, again, make sure she eats and sleeps and
right.
And, that kind of thing. But
and gave her someone to talk to other than cats.
True. There's that too. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that, they didn't go the Holly route this early.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Thought that was a chance they might do that, but I'm glad they went this route instead. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah. Things that jumped out to me in this segment were Harvey continues to be shady. Harvey continues to be a little scummy. So we'll see how that goes. Talking about Batman 66, there is I have notes all across the way, and we've touched on them a little bit, obviously, in the previous episodes. But yeah, there's a lot of Batman 66 throughout this series, more than I was expecting. When we knew we were getting Bruce Timm, we knew they were going for 1940s. I was like, oh, we'll get like old Hollywood setting, we'll get like this Batman serials, maybe stuff. Fleischer Superman. So I was surprised how much it feels like Batman 66, like 1966 Batman. And the thing that jumped out to me here was the establishing shot of the courthouse before we get to the inside of the courthouse. And it's how they do a lot of the establishing shots for previous episodes too, for various buildings, where it's like the building in the establishing shot that they're going into, like police headquarters in earlier episodes, like it really stands out as like one building kind of on its own in a different style, like a matte painting in another painting to me. And it really feels like driving up to the courthouse in Batman 66 and jumping out of the car, like on the Warner Brothers lot. Yeah. Like every establishing shot feels like it's from Batman 1966 to me. So it's fun now at this point. Now I'm like, it's kind of like an Easter egg each time. Like, how is this, like, what's the building going to look like in this establishing shot? It's always like something that's kind of stands out and doesn't look quite like it belongs, which is funny to me. But there's a lot of Batman 66 in this.
I like, there's that news report while Bruce is working out, there is some talk about like inflation and unemployment and like the rise in crime is putting a strain on busy police and stuff. And that is maybe also, I feel like, the most they've referenced like an actual historical thing.
Right.
Like it feels very Depression aftermathy.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. I missed it the first time. But yeah, no, I like that they're having fun with it. I like that I like the strongman shorts. I mean, like you look at those like Carney, like you know, strongmen and stuff like that. Like that's what they look like.
Yeah,
it's fun. All right, Catwoman is robbing an apartment. Batman arrives. We have a foot chase over the rooftops. She slips and falls off of one of the roofs. Batman jumps and catches her. She kisses him as his line is letting him down to the streets. Batman pushes her off though, and says that she's wasting his time. She teases him with a brass knuckle weapon, and then runs off while Batman is down and exits in the Catmobile.
Right.
Flass and Bullock barge into Selina's penthouse, only the flat is completely empty. The doorman had followed them up and says she had moved out after the court hearing the other day. Bullock is pissed because she has hit 4 safes last night, and now she's underground. We cut to Selina's new apartment, which is a complete hovel, with like her nice ritzy stuff moved into it.
Right.
But like the building's got like the roof's got like leaks in the roof and stuff like that. She says that no one here will care who they are or talk to the police in this neighborhood. She says that last night's take alone, she was able to pay for a year's of rent. So no more creditors. But Greta says she never asked to live like an outlaw. In the Batcave, Batman is frustrated. Catwoman keeps getting away. So Alfred says, why not leave her to the police? After all, she's just a jewel thief, not a villain. Besides, Bruce has appointments today, and that gives Bruce an idea. At the museum, Bruce is citing the Catwoman robberies as reason to pull the jewels from the museum display. The curator begs to just have the weekend at least. And word gets out the exhibit is ending early. So Bruce has his plan set. But Alfred says that he had another appointment. So we're back in Harley's office. Bruce says this is their last session, and he wants to thank her. These sessions have been helpful. Harley is skeptical, but she says she's going to sign his paperwork anyway. He's not a danger to himself or anyone else. And she thinks he hasn't made any progress, though, and would like the sessions to continue. He declines. He gets his paper signed. In the car with Alfred after, he passes the papers. He says, get this to Lucius. Alfred suggests continuing with the sessions, and Bruce says he's fine. Drop it. Flashback to young Bruce recounting the murders while trying to sleep. He wakes Alfred standing in the doorway. Very, very, very dark, very shadowy. And he says they're all going to pay, all of them. I'm going to make them pay. And he says, and you're going to help me. And then we get a tight close up on like a very, very wide-eyed, creepy young Bruce. What do we think?
There's a lot going on in that ending.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff to cover there.
Yes.
Starting with that kid's dark.
Yeah.
That Bruce kid is dark.
Yeah.
he's got some damage going on. Yeah, the line, I'm going to make them pay and you're going to help me.
Yes.
Right.
Being said to a 60-year-old man by an 8-year-old boy.
Yeah.
Right.
It took a dark turn there, and I'm guessing Harleen Quinzel is quite right that he's dealing with some repressed trauma.
Yeah.
More than he realizes. So there's that right at the end. But
it's such a good scene. Like that scene wowed me so much. I mean, it makes you feel so much. Just like, God, this kid.
No, I like it. What I liked about the scene the most was the fact that there's always that talk of like, well, when does Bruce stop being Bruce?
Right.
Is it the moment they're killed? Is it right after?
Yeah.
Is it when he decides to make the conscious choice of like, oh no, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to make criminals pay? And it's a nice moment of like, no, that could be the moment.
Yeah.
That's the moment where he sets himself on the path, and then that's and then he gets to be Batman. So Yeah, I liked all that stuff. I thought it was a really good scene.
Now I want to go back a little bit to cover some of the stuff before that scene. And a lot of good stuff in Catwoman blowing her second chance and just jumping right back into the stealing gimmick. And now she's got the Catmobile.
Yeah.
And what I love about this, and I liked it the first time, is she just sees something she likes and steals it.
Yeah.
First, it was the costume with Batman. She saw it in the paper and was like, oh, I'm taking that. I'm doing that. Then she sees the car and thinks, I'm stealing that too. Right. I mean, not literally stealing the gimmick, obviously. Right. So it's part of her kleptomania. Like she sees something she likes, so she steals it, even ideas.
Yeah.
And I think, Frank, you watched Poker Face, right?
Oh yeah.
And do you remember the musician episode with the kid that our main character in Poker Face describes as a magpie because he just takes things, he just collects things,
right?
And that's who he is. That's what I feel about this. Like she's just that's who she is. She's a kleptomaniac, and she'll steal whatever,
right?
Like good ideas, jewels, anything she likes, she'll just take it. So I thought that was like a fun little thing where you just see her eyes light up those couple times in the episode where she sees them in the paper, she sees the car, and okay, like she's going to do it. Like this is where it's coming from. And that's all it is. It's just like the whim of a kleptomaniac is what's driving her to do this stuff, which goes with the flightiness and the kind of frivolity of it, which is a really fun take for her, I think. I really like that. Going on from that just a little bit, man, poor Greta.
Yeah.
Poor Greta. Like now she's living in a slum.
Yep.
I was like, yeah, this isn't the life she wanted.
Worst boss ever.
Yeah. Poor Greta stuck in the slums.
Yeah.
Crime Alley or wherever they
Selena
bought a flat.
What did you think, Frank? Beyond the young kid, the young Bruce moment.
Oh, no, the cat. I mean, now that I like the cat car, I thought it was a fun bit, but it was obvious that when she saw the Batmobile, I was like, oh, I can do that too. But I like what Clifton said about tying it into kleptomania and the fact that she's all impulse, right? Like she just thinks that she's like, I'm just going to do this because I could do this. And again, much like you said before in the earlier section, not really thinking about the consequences. And again, it also plays in the whole thing of being cat-like of, well, I'm going to land on my feet. It'll be okay. It doesn't matter what I really do because I'll be all right. I'll come out on the other side, which I think is, again, crucial to her character. I think it's important to have her be that kind of loose and kind of not real rigid, not really thinking about where it's what's gonna happen. Just doing stuff, I think, is interesting.
Right. My thing here, I thought the Catmobile was maybe like a bridge too far.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I was like, oh okay, like what? I just was not expecting it.
Yeah.
First, I was like, oh geez, wow, they're going there. Cool design though, and another car that sounded really really cool because it's flat out roaring at them. What gets me, so there's always been similarities with Batman and Catwoman. I think though I've never quite seen them be so similar in this way, where she's literally doing like the stuff that he does, like his gimmicks,
right?
And she has an Alfred. And and in some cases she's as vapid as Bruce pretends to be.
Right.
I think that's kind of an interesting take as well.
Yeah. Again, the other thing that I was thinking was also the idea that, again, going back to year one, that's the whole thing is once he figures out, oh, I'm gonna when he tries this, remember, because they meet in that when she's still in her leather bustier and he's playing the old vet with the scar bit before he realizes he can be Batman. Well, once he becomes Batman, she figures it out too and decides to be Catwoman.
Right.
That was the other feeling that I had when I saw, oh, well, I can do this too. Was
right. Yeah, that's true. That is true.
It made me think of that one too.
What gets me though is that aside from the cold open, I mean, there does not appear to be like any attraction from Batman on this.
No.
Like not like I mean, she's really just like an annoyance to him.
I mean, unless it's just one of those things where he just can't let himself be, I mean, I agree with you. It's not really there it's not there on the page, and it's not there what we see. But it could just be a situation of,
right.
There's no way that I can't be when I was human last. Things went to hell.
Right. I do agree with that. I mean, like maybe there's some things happening internally that we haven't seen play out yet. But I mean,
right.
On the surface, that's what it looks like. I mean,
right.
it looks like, I mean, she's able to tempt him so much more in other iterations.
Sure.
Than she is in this one, which again is this is maybe the one case of like a character so in line with what she is and always has been, and also a departure.
Right.
I do wonder if they're setting up the trope of she gets under his skin so much that then there's the attraction,
like his girl Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he thinks she's driving her crazy until he realizes like that's not what he's actually feeling.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Until you realize I'm in love with you, darling.
Right. That's what I wonder if that's what they're setting up.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we're in the home stretch for episode 3. So Batman meets photographer E.L. O'Brien, says he needs him to take pictures. At the museum, Catwoman has tied up the guards. A silent alarm is set off at the museum, which Flass and Bullock respond. Catwoman steals some of the jewels. Batman arrives, says, put the jewels back. And then Catwoman sicks a panther on him. Batman fights it while she runs off. Flass and Bullock arrive. Batman gasses the panther to make it pass out. Catwoman runs from the cops. Flash shoots her in the leg. She goes down. Flash says they won't need the cuffs and then draws his gun on her. Batman arrives, beats up Flash, beats up Bullock. O'Brien is snapping pictures the whole time of all of this. Then Batman wraps up Catwoman's wound. She says that he helped her, but then he cuffs her leg to a table with a huge vase on it. And then he runs off and leaves her there. And she yells, he's no fun. Outside, Batman meets with O'Brien. O'Brien is giving him a roll of the film. He says he got shots of everything, but not just of her. He says he got shots of him handling the cops in there, and he offers to destroy them. Batman says, just make sure the Catwoman ones run. He doesn't care about the others. And then he leaves. And then we see Catwoman in custody at police headquarters. She calls and finally gets through to Greta. Says they have evidence this time and she needs her to come bail her out. Greta says, nope, that's impossible. You have no more money. Catwoman says she can sell a few items to make bail money. And she says, nope, she sold everything already. We see the slum apartment is now bare. And Greta has got a suitcase and she's dressed to the nines.
Yep.
And she says she's owed her years of back pay and now she's collecting and she's going to be late for her cruise to the Bahamas. This catches Catwoman completely off guard, who calls her a crook. And then back at the Batcave, Alfred says Catwoman's evidence might hold up, but the pics might be more trouble for him. And Batman says maybe, but at least now they'll know that he's coming for them all. Alfred tries to convince Bruce again to go see Dr. Quinzel. Batman just cuts him off and says the coffee's getting cold. And then we flash back one last time to Crime Alley. Alfred is at the limo cleaning the windshield. And in the distance, we hear 2 gunshots. And then Alfred comes running towards it. And that is the moment the Waynes are murdered. And we fade out. And that's the end of episode 3. Took me a couple of viewings. The first time I saw this, I think I probably should have waited to the next day. I think it was a little late.
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't catch me around. It didn't catch until the second time around. I was like, oh, like this is an Alfred episode.
Yeah.
Without focusing on Alfred at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is one of those where it's like, oh, so you're showing us what he saw and then just how he's tried to do things with Bruce or try to make things better for Bruce, and Bruce being like, nope, not doing that.
Yeah, this is one where I had the more notes about like, yeah, this is definitely a much colder relationship. This isn't Bruce welcoming the father figure Alfred. Like he's very standoffish. Like Alfred tries, or Pennyworth tries. and Bruce is not receptive to it. So that's again not what we're used to. And it's set up, and we'll have to see how it goes for me. That whole relationship, just because I'm so not used to that coldness between them, that standoffishness.
It is unnerving.
Yeah.
And it did make me go, because there's some versions where he calls Bruce Master Bruce, and some where he calls him Master Wayne.
Right.
And I did think, like, why didn't they go with Master Wayne in this one? But then it hit me. I'm just like, well, no, I mean, it's showing how one-sided it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Like Alfred's trying, Pennyworth's trying.
Yeah.
Right.
He's reaching out. It's just being rebuffed.
Yep. Basically.
Going back to the moment. Well, one, it was nice to see Greta. There's Greta. Poor Greta getting her her due, getting her reward in the end for all the hardship that she's tolerated so far with this flighty, frivolous Catwoman, Selina. So that was I did enjoy that bit. It was a fun bit, which she should have seen coming. Selina should have really seen it coming if she wasn't so frivolous, flighty, and self-centered. And the other bit is Batman beating the crap out of Flass and Bullock. And then you get that moment where Eel O'Brien is like I thought he was trying to blackmail him. I thought he was stupidly trying to blackmail Batman.
Right.
And be like, I got these pictures too. What is it like? What are you going to give me to not release them? Which I think possibly still was the angle that he was starting to go for when he's like, I could destroy them all. Until Batman was like, I don't care. And then he realized, like, oh, there's no money to squeeze out of that. But the more interesting thing about that is when, because again, I thought same thing that Alfred voices in the episode, where it's like, this could be trouble for you. And that's what I thought as well, until Bruce is like, oh no, like it'll send a message. And I realized, like, oh, he's telling the cops, like, if you're dirty, you are the same to me as any criminal.
Right.
Which I think is the important thing to take out of that, is it was a message to all the police to say, like, dirty cops, criminals, you're all the same to Batman. And I like that. I thought that was a really cool, like, little flip on my expectations for that scene.
Nice. Frank, what about you?
I kind of took it. I like that interpretation. I like that too, but I also like it, just the idea of, the idea that cops were brutal. Cops could be, and to see Batman beating up on cops in the paper would not necessarily be a bad thing for people who, not criminals, but people who had bad experiences with the police officers or law enforcement in those days, to see that, it's not, like you said, he doesn't see a difference between people who are doing stuff that's wrong. Because I'm sure Flass and, to an extent, Bullock have a laundry list of complaints. I can't imagine they don't, by, the average citizen who, like, were, things were not, the things weren't handled right, or they were harassed or beaten up or whatever. So, to see a guy in a costume knock him around, when they did the same thing to you, would probably be, especially at the times we're coming out of the Great Depression, coming out of a time when things were, people were in a lot of dire straits, to maybe think that maybe we're getting more of a people's champion kind of thing with this Batman, as opposed to other interpretations where he's kind of more outlaw than he's actually is.
Mm.
But no, I find myself feeling bad for Alfred.
Sure.
The ending with the gunshots, and then obviously the idea that he's trying to look out for him. He's trying to be, just be good to him, and he's like, nah. Basically, mind your own business and drive the car.
Right.
I've said this in past episodes. I'm a big Alfred fan. I love Alfred. He has grown to be almost as superpowered as Bruce is, for an average man, right? He's a spy,
right?
He's a medic. He's an actor. He's good at everything.
Yep.
What gets me, but in every interpretation, almost every, there's not a version where Alfred doesn't genuinely care for Bruce and genuinely do a lot of things for him. What hits me, though, is the fact that Bruce does not really treat him with any respect whatsoever.
Yeah.
Really does shine more of a focus on just how much Alfred does for him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When it's not reciprocated. And again, big change, tough to swallow. I imagine maybe one of the toughest pills to swallow for the whole show. I mean, like I said, when I was rewatching with my wife, like she didn't like that decision at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like not a single bit. I hate that he's a dick to Alfred.
Right, I agree.
Right?
I'm with your wife on that one. Yeah,
yeah.
And but again, like you said, I'm hoping that it is a setup to something else.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, by showing it, as long as, I can only imagine it's been going on for a long, long time at that point.
Right.
So any kind of change has to be earned. If we're showing us that it's been, since the murders, he's basically rebuffed Alfred, and basically thought, no, I've got a handle on this, when he may or may not. We don't know.
I do want to get to the murders really quick before we close out, and then any last final thoughts. I do want to point out that this is a show that is geared towards more adults.
Right.
This is a show where we could have gotten the Wayne murders shown, and you can make it grisly, you can make it a horror movie, you can make it scary, right? Like, you don't need to walk on eggshells around it, because this is going to be watched by 7-year-olds.
Right.
Right. And I do appreciate still, with all that, the decision to not really show it, but just show the moments before it or after it, or the moment it's happening, but we're down the street from it.
Right.
And I think it is very, very much a reaction to, and I do want credit for this for a little, because I've been saying it for many, many, many years, that we have gotten too many versions of the Wayne murders on camera. Like, we don't need it that much.
Right.
And I do think that that's very much like completely there. Like, how many times do we need to show it again? Like, it's Superman's origin at this point. Like, do we need to tell you about it? Everybody knows.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think?
Yeah, again, I think they were able to basically have that moment. Again, much like the Pearls, I think they were able to have the moment without having the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it worked really well, because we know what he's running to. We know what's going on. It's not a question of who got shot. Everyone knows who got shot.
I think it's interesting, after all this time and all the times we've seen it, to find a different perspective on it. We have not seen Alfred's perspective on it that I can recall.
No.
At least in any of the tellings. We've seen, Bruce's angle on it a lot, or just kind of a like third person view of it happening, or a lot. The pearls hitting the ground, everyone can picture over and over.
Or other characters shoehorned into it.
Yeah.
Like Catwoman in Gotham, and the killer being Joker in 89 and stuff. I mean, you're right. Like, I mean, we every moment for Alfred has been him comforting Bruce immediately after, but we haven't necessarily seen him on the scene, like hearing it.
Yeah. So I think in all the times we've seen it, for them to figure out like another angle that they hadn't covered, that nobody else had covered, but that is pertinent, that is worth seeing, I thought was really cool.
It makes it also, for me, a traumatic event for Alfred that he never gets to talk about.
Right.
And I think that there's a layer there to explore. Like you're saying, I mean, this is one of those instances where I want more out of it. I do want them to revisit it, I think, because I think that there's interesting places to go that we haven't seen. And you're right, it's been 85 years, almost 90 years, and Alfred's been around just about that long.
Right.
And the murders have been around just about that long. It took this long for somebody to say, like, well, what about him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
My final thought is that probably on the first 3 episodes, I liked each one more than the one before. So That's my final thought on these three so far, which is as far as I am in the show. So
interesting. Okay.
So we'll see what happens next time.
Well, it sounds like you're digging it.
Yeah, no, definitely digging it so far. Obviously, like I've, there's the things we've mentioned that I'm not sold on yet, but overall, I am digging it so far. So I want to see those things I don't like. I want to see where they're going at least.
Cool. Okay. Frank, anything else?
Along those lines, I'm only 3 episodes in as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as far as I've gotten so far. There's just we're in the time in our lives where there's just an abundance of stuff to watch. Abundance, I should say, of things to watch. So I haven't got to the rest of it yet. I do like what I've seen. It's still, for me, it's a mixed bag. I'm not firm on my decision of whether I like it or don't like it. It's just, to me, there are things I really like about it, other things I just go, huh? And then we'll see if throughout the rest of the season, if that's the case. But I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it.
I like Batman.
What?
I like 1940s.
Yeah.
I like film noir.
Yep.
I like Bruce Timm. I like James
All
Tucker.
true.
I like
These
cartoons.
are all true statements.
This is for me.
This is just for Zach.
This is
Maybe
made
it's
for
just
Zach.
for Zach.
Yep. All right, so we'll leave it there. If you want to suggest a topic, you can tell us in the comments. Email us at info@letmeknowhowitis.com. We are also on Blue Sky as well. You can find us there at LMKHII. Reminding you that you can find links and examples to everything we talk about on letmeknowhowitis.com, where you can check out all of our past episodes. Just please, however you find us or however you're listening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review and follow us on social media. And we will see you guys next time for part 2 of Batman Cape Crusader season review.